Welcome to the Big Book Roundtable and the RICO 12 family of recovery resources targeted at people from all backgrounds, faiths, and places dealing with all addictions and afflictions of any kind. RICO 12 is happy to be a resource for any of these people. I'm grateful to be the steward and the host and sitting around this roundtable with David G. and Nikki M. I'm Justin B. I am a child of an all-powerful and all-loving God and a multidisciplinary addict living the miraculous recovery that's promised in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous and in the fellowships, these 12-step fellowships that I am a part of. We're grateful to be here today, and we'll be continuing in chapter How It Works, in the chapter How It Works in the Big Book. But before we get into that, I'd like to have Nikki and David each introduce themselves. Let's start with you, Nikki, today.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nikki M., and I'm a grateful member of this beautiful fellowship, and I'm a sister to these two beautiful brothers at the table here. So, you can create a family, a chosen family in the 12-step rooms, and actually anywhere in the world. We're all brothers and sisters trying to get through life, and I'm just grateful to show up here today. I'm wholeheartedly and enthusiastic ready for this session.
Awesome. Thank you, Nikki. David, introduce yourself and say hi.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Justin, for your service as always, and you as well, Miss Nikki. Love seeing you both. I'm David G. I'm from Oklahoma. I'm an alcoholic addict, recovered in both of those areas by the grace of a loving God that revealed himself to me through the 12-step program as outlined in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Super, super glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you both. Happy to have you both here, David and Nikki, two of my favorite people in the world. All right. So before we get reading, I just want to, if this is your first time into the Big Book Roundtable, you got a lot of catching up to do, but we're happy that we can just start off anywhere in the Big Book and dive deep in it. We, like I mentioned, are in the chapter How It Works. We'll be reading pages 64, starting at Therefore We Started, and we'll go through the end of the example of the inventory there on page 65. And what we do in this is we read line by line, and then each Nikki and David have the opportunity to kind of share some of the things that they read and have learned as they've gone through this. And then we get to reflect and do some takeaways from it after some questions. So let's get started. Therefore, we started upon a personal inventory. This was step 4. A business which takes no regular inventory usually goes broke. Taking a commercial inventory is a fact-finding and fact-facing process. It is an effort to discover the truth about the stock in trade. One object is to disclose damaged or unsellable goods, to get rid of them promptly and without regret. If the owner of the business is to be successful, he cannot fool himself about values. We did exactly the same thing with our lives. We took stock honestly. First, we searched out the flaws in our makeup, which caused our failure. Being convinced that self, manifested in various ways, was what had defeated us, we considered its common manifestations. Resentment is the number one offender. It destroys more alcoholics than anything else. From it stem all forms of spiritual disease, for we have been not only mentally and physically ill, we have been spiritually sick. When the spiritual malady is overcome, we straighten out mentally and physically. In dealing with resentments, we set them on paper. We listed people, institutions, or principles with whom we were angry. We asked ourselves why we were angry. In most cases, it was found that our self-esteem, our pocketbooks, our ambitions, our personal relationships, including sex, were hurt or threatened. So we were sore. We were burned up. On our grudge list, we set opposite each name our injuries. Was it our self-esteem, our security, our ambitions, our personal or sex relations which had been interfered with? We were usually as definite as this example. Then I'm going to read through this example. It's a 3-column example, and I'm going to go through it line by line. But if you want to follow along, go to page 65 so you can see what it looks like. It's helpful to do that. I'm resentful at Mr. Brown. The cause? His attention to my wife. He told my wife of my mistress, and Mr. Brown may get my job at the office. And this affects my sex relations, my self-esteem with fear in brackets, sex relations, self-esteem with fear in brackets, security and self-esteem with fear in brackets. And those are for each of those 3 different causes for Mr. Brown. I'm resentful at Mrs. Jones. She's a nut. She snubbed me. She committed her husband for drinking. He's my friend. She's a gossip. This affects my personal relationship and self-esteem with fear in brackets. I'm resentful at my employer. The cause? He's unreasonable, unjust, overbearing, threatens to fire me for drinking and padding my expense account. This threatens my self-esteem with fear in brackets and security. And then the last one on this example is I'm resentful at my wife. Misunderstands and nags. Likes Mr. Brown. Wants the house put in her name. And that's the cause. And what does this affect? It affects pride, personal and sex relations, security with fear in brackets. So that's the example that is laid out here in the big book of this. And that's our reading. So let's start with you, Nikki. As we go through that, what were some of the things that you'd like to comment on?
Well, so much when I'm not distracted by the internet. Hopefully that's working, and the battery level on my phone and all that good stuff. Okay, I'll just look at you guys. If something goes weird, please let me know. But I just love this. And I'm going to read this a little bit different because I know David's going to go through line by line. He does his stuff, and I love that. But I'm going to read it a little different. I'm going to identify right now. Hi, I'm Nikki, and I'm a love addict. And so therefore, Nikki started upon a personal, of course, I put my initials there, inventory. But I want to put here, therefore, Nikki started upon a relationship inventory. See, I like to take my relationships through this too. We all know a way to go through it for any addiction and affliction, but I want to read this because I share a lot with people, and I say, you don't do this in your relationship. See, this is a step 4, a relationship which takes no regular inventory. Usually what not only goes broke, breaks up, divorce, you name it. See, taking a relationship inventory is a fact-finding and fact-facing process. I recommend people, including myself, instead of having your anniversary, it's January, whatever it is, January 15th, we've been together 18 years. Well, why don't you, instead of going and having dinner, and if you can't pop champagne because you're an alcoholic, instead of popping the sparkling water, why don't you do a fact-finding and a fact-facing inventory of your relationship? Where are you 18 years later? Get deep here. This is not just remember, we practice these principles in all our affairs. See, it's an effort to discover the truth, and not only about me when I do my personal inventory in a step 4, but how about the truth about the stock and trade in my relationship with my partner, with my best friend, with my community, whatever it looks like. One object is to disclose damaged or insoluble goods. I have to get rid of the things, again, remember, that are blocking me. I have to get rid of them promptly now. And we're going to learn how to do that. That's not by me and more of my effort to live on self-will. That's going to come up a lot in step 6 and 7. I'm going to stop doing the things I want to do, and I'm going to get humble and start doing the things I don't want to do. And I'm going to do it without regret. See, we're going to read later that our past is our greatest asset. I'm going through this right now. I mean, I've basically put my relationship out on whatever podcast Justin and I started since day one. And I'm always in ups and downs and trials and low spots. And right now I'm looking back at some of my behavior most recently, and I'm not in regret because I've been programmed to know that nothing happens in God's world by mistake. Everything's exactly the way it's supposed to be. See, if Nikki, the owner of my life, my business, if I want to be successful, I can't fool myself about the values. So I love this. We did exactly the same thing with my life, just like a business would. I do it with my relationships. Stop going out and partying on your anniversary, you guys. If your relationship is on the rocks, sit down and do a written inventory, put it in black and white and look at it. And you take stock honestly, and you got to search out the flaws in our makeup, in Nikki's makeup, in our relationship, honey. What's going wrong that's causing our failure? See, I have to be convinced, 100% convinced that that's it, self. And I love this, manifests in various ways. That's page 22 that we read way back when. Our behavior patterns vary. Stop looking at me. Stop looking at me. You look at you. Because I can do things that David and Justin can't do. And they probably can do things I can't do, because our Behavior patterns vary, or they manifest in various ways. And that's what defeats me. It's not the world, not my prime minister, not the money. And then we got to consider its common manifestations, 7 deadly sins. We're all there, right? And resentment is the number one offender. Again, it's not my boyfriend. It's not my children. It's not the people. It's not the alcohol, the drugs, whatever your drug of non-choice is. It's a resentment, refeeling, replaying over and over and over, and getting to the root of these words, everybody. It destroys. What's it? The resentment. You mean it's not my dad that I didn't meet till I was 18? No, Nikki. No, Nikki. It's the refeeling. That's going to destroy you. From it. From what? From the resentment stems all forms of my spiritual disease. Oh, I know what's wrong with me. No, I have a spiritual disease because I have not been only mentally and physically ill. I've been spiritually sick. And I'm going to tell everyone right here, this is the biggest promise for someone like me who's vain, body obsessed, a retired burlesque entertainer. It was only, ladies in the back, it was only when my spiritual malady was overcome that I straightened out physically and mentally, straight up. Like, this is deep. This is a big promise for you who are running to your doctor. I got to get my ducks in a row. I got to get my ass nice and tight. You understand where this goes. None of that's going to be overcome until your spiritual malady is straightened out. And in dealing with my resentments, I put it on paper. How about in dealing with everything? Because it's too big. It's the size of Texas in my head. I got to put that shit down on paper, black and white, shrink it down. And everyone forgets to list the principles. We're just looking at people. You better list the principles and institutions that you're angry. And remember, we're going to read, and this is where I've been living, you guys. This is why I'm here today. I need this more than anyone else, I think, on the planet right now. I need to be here because I've been living on, not following these instructions. Page 111, when we read that's going to tell us the first principle of success is that you should never be angry. But I'm angry all the time. So I have to ask myself, why am I angry? I've been doing this lately, like angry. When I had a blackout last week, a friend came over and he says, Nikki, it's not anger. It's just pure evil. Go deep with me, Nikki. It's just evil. It's not just anger. You're selfish. We can put nice names on it. You're evil. And that took me to a new level. And it says, in most cases, these are your choices, everybody. Oh, my feelings were hurt. No, this is what happened. Your self-esteem, your pocketbook, your ambitions, your personal relationships, including sex, are hurt or threatened. I don't see feelings on here. So we're sore, we're burned up. On my grudge list, I'm going to put these names down. And it's always the same 3. I love column 3. People come at me, especially in Al-Anon codependence. I do not need a 552-word column 3. Here it is. Is it your self-esteem? Is it your security? Is it your ambitions? This is real simple, but everybody wants to write me an essay. I just rinse and repeat. And I always encourage everyone, put down sex. Well, it didn't affect my sex. I'm just mad at grandma. You're going to go make sweet love to your husband when you're seething at the makeup lady at the counter? I'm not. I'm planning on ways to get even. So everything affects my sex life. Everything affects my personal relationships. And, let's go through the chart real quick because I always want to hear my David G. I'm resentful at. This is Bill W. from what my sponsor explained to me and what I understand. And this is pretty self-explanatory, and I'll let David, but let me just do a quick one right now, present time. I'm resentful. I always go for my government. The cause. How about I'm resentful at the human race? The cause. I'm not getting what I want. It's not happening now. People are stupid. Yeah, I could go on and on, point form. And this affects everything. This affects, let's read it one more time. My self-esteem. I don't feel like getting out of bed when I'm not getting what I want. My pocketbook. Hello. Have you seen the price of the groceries? 2024, everyone. It affects my ambition. It affects all my relationships, including sex. Right? And Yeah, I guess that's it. My self-esteem, all that stuff. It just is rinse and repeat. This is real simple, but not easy. And I'm not saying don't go celebrate with some sparkling wine and some dark chocolate and some sweet cuddles after you take your personal inventory and your relationship inventory on your anniversary. This is radical stuff. We got to wake each other up. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki, and thanks for going through those columns on something that's you know current in your life. I think that's helpful to do that. David, why don't you take a minute and go through what we've read and let's talk about the things that jump out at you?
Sure. Nikki, thank you so much for your share and your insight on the book. You know, I'm always intrigued and very grateful to be here with you, you know, as you share your experience, strength, and hope. So thank you so much. There's a lot here. This is the first 3 columns, guys. This isn't just 1 or 2 columns. This is all 3 of them. And there's a lot. We started upon, didn't say we finished upon. Now we've made a start here on our personal inventory. This is step 4. A business which takes no regular inventory usually goes broke. That's a pretty strong warning for me because I'm the man who's in the business of recovering, not just staying sober. So it's telling me if I don't take a regular inventory, and that's something I do in my 10th step daily. If I'm not taking a regular inventory, I'm going to go broke. And you know what that means for people like us? That don't end very damn well. Not for this alcoholic addict. So taking a commercial inventory is a fact finding. And in order to find the facts, I'm going to have to search. A fact facing. In order to face the facts, I'm going to have be fearless. Remember in the prior page, in step 3 directions, we begin to lose our fear of the day, tomorrow, hereafter. We're reborn. We have to stay close to God right here, because if we don't, self is going to come in and it's going to write the inventory. We'll see that here in the example in just a minute. Self wrote the first 3 columns for this guy. It's unbelievable. And I see it with everybody I work with. It says it is an effort to discover the truth. Well, if you look that word up, it just means moral. So if fact finding is searching, fact facing is fearless, and the word truth means moral, well, there's what it is. It's a searching, fearless, moral inventory. It tells me right there what I'm about to do. But it's talking about the stock in trade, the stock inside of me. But I'm going to discover the truth about the lie. The lie is self. It's the voice within that tells me what to do. And unconsciously, I take actions based on that, thinking it is the truth. And my life turns out pretty lousy. So I'm being deceived here by the deceiver. And I don't even really know this is going on. For so long, I thought, this is who I am. But when I write this inventory, I see it's not who I am, it's who I became based on believing a lie. So this is an effort to discover the truth about that lie. One object is to disclose, damage, or unsellable goods. We're talking about resentment. We're talking about fear. We're talking about conduct, pride, self-esteem, ambition, security. These are the objects that stand in our way. They're damaged. They're unsaleable. I always thought that was talking about me. I'm damaged. I'm unsaleable. I'd have told you that. I'm that way because there's a reason. But here's the promise. I've got to become willing to get rid of them promptly without regret. And every time I try to do that, it's almost like I have a mourning within me. It's like I go through this place where, oh my God, that's gone. You know, I've been so used to fear all my life, and all of a sudden it's gone. What the hell? I don't understand this new way of living. So if the owner of the business, that's me, because I'm in the business of recovering, is to be successful, and you can bet I want to be successful here in my recovery. I've had self beat me into some unsuccess many times, but if I'm going to be successful, I can't fool myself about values. And that has always been my problem. I've never really valued the value. It's insane. So we're going to do the same thing with our life. We're going to take stock, honestly, keyword. We're going to search out the flaws in our, and here it is, it's in our makeup. This is what's caused our failure, not booze, not drugs, not relationships, not food, not sex. Self manifested in various ways. And I tell my guys, circle that word self. Self manifested in various ways is what had defeated us. Now, when we get to column 3 in this work, the way I do it, you will see how that manifestation comes to life. But I have them to circle the word self, and I have them to circle the word us. Look at those two words. They're not the same. See, the problem is I identify with self. I think I am self. My thoughts, my feelings, my actions, my this. No, that shit ain't mine. I start to separate from it here, and I begin to get free. It says we're going to consider its. I have them circle that word because that's talking about self. Let's look at self's common manifestation, because all the way up through this book to this point, it's told us, and it tells us right here again, that's what's defeated you, David. Resentment's the number one offender. It, talking about resentment, which is a common manifestation of self, destroys more alcoholics from anything. From it, talking about resentment, which is a common manifestation of self, stem all forms of spiritual disease. People tell me my spirit is sick. I call bullshit. If your spirit is sick, there's no hope. None. Period. I read another book that says God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of truth and of wisdom. My spirit ain't sick. And I've had people in the program get fighting mad over this. They're like, that's bullshit. You need to quit saying that. It says right here that not only have we been mentally and physically ill, we've been spiritually sick. But read them lines carefully. I'm not spiritually sick because of my spirit. I'm spiritually sick because of a human condition that parades around as God, and I believe it, and I'm praying to it, and I'm obeying it, and I'm doing shit, and my life's getting worse. How could that be my spirit? How could that be God? No, resentment's the number one offender. From it, which is the common manifestation of self, stem all forms of spiritual disease, not from the spirit. Yeah, we've been mentally and physically ill. We've been spiritually sick, not from the spirit, but because of resentment, which is a common manifestation of self. See how it's deceived us into believing this? So in order for me to recover from this, I'm going to have to put it on paper and look it square in the face. That same book says that I will meet with the council. It says I will sit before the council. That's what the master teacher said in the other book I read. This is the council. You ready to sit before him? You ready? There's more than one of them, by the way. So we're going to, and this is how I do it. In dealing with resentments, we set them on paper. We listed people, institutions, principles with whom we were angry. There's a period there. That means stop. You're going to bring me a list. I did this, and I kept wanting to draw charts because that's what I'd always done. He said, no, don't draw charts. Just bring a list. I said, well, I'll write this and this. He said, don't do any of that. He said, why in the hell can't you understand that all it's asking us to do is make a list? Finally, it sunk in. And he said, oh, by the way, when you get to principles, we're going to talk about the things you hate about David. I'm like, oh, my God, that's going to be a hell of a list. And he said, oh, by the way, pay close attention to those words when it says, we're going to ask ourselves why we were angry. He said, I ain't really worried about the resentments, but I want you to bring me a list of all the people you've been angry at in your life. I'm like, shit, you have no idea what that list will look like. And he said, yeah, I know what a list looks like when you live by self-will and don't know it. So it took me a while, but I come back with this huge list because I've been angry at a lot of people in my life. But my book's going to tell me here pretty soon, if I want to live, I've got to be free of that anger. I got to be free. So if I don't look at me here, guess what? It's going to chase me up the steps. And when I get to amends, it's going to tell me that you're no good, you're damaged, you're unsaleable. It's going to do all these things. You know why? Because I didn't deal with it down here. I didn't look at David. I looked at people, institutions, and when I went to principles, I don't even know what the hell I looked at. Column 2, after all that's done, I'm going to ask myself why I'm angry. He had me to go to the cause on the example on page 65. He said, count the words. I counted 19. Everybody, I asked them to count the words. They're 19. He said, we don't want a life story here. We want bullet points. 19 words or less. Bring me back a list as to why you were angry. And so that's what I did. And so when we look at the 7 areas of self, which is listed there, this is column 3. Self-esteem, pocketbook, ambition, personal relationships. He said, I want you to circle the word hurt. I want you to circle the word threaten. The sword burned up on our grudge list. We said opposite each name are injuries. He said, I want you to circle the word injuries. He said, there's 3 areas we're going to look at. What's been hurt, what's been threatened, what's been injured, and what's been interfered with. There's 4 areas that we're going to look at. Not, I said 3, it's 4. So I have some definitions of what each one of them are here. If we've got a few minutes, Justin, if I'm taking too long, shut me down, buddy.
No, take your time on this one. Let's go deep.
Self-esteem, definition of this is how did I feel about me? Now there's high and there's low. I feel either better than you or I feel lower than you at any given time. If I'm out of sorts with you and I feel better with you, then I'm suffering from high self-esteem. If I feel like a low piece of shit and I'm not worthy of your presence or anyone else's, I'm suffering from the low. I need to know which one of the 2 I'm suffering from. Pride, how I thought others saw me or felt about me, how others felt about me. Oh, shit. Wow. Ambition, what did I want? Did I want your attention? Did I want you to praise me? Did I want you to tell me how good of a guy I am? Did I want you to sleep with me? And even though I don't care about my values, I'm going to compromise yours as well. How do I really feel about me? Security. What do I think I need from others for me to think and be okay? We could write all day about that. Personal relationship. What demands do I put on others? And this is any relationships other than sex relations. Sex relations. What was hurt, threatened, injured, or interfered with on the inside of me? That's any relationship I'm involved in, real, imagined, or potential. Pocketbook. How was I hurt, threatened, injured, or interfered with what's inside of me? Finances, money, property, security, material. People are thinking, oh my God, shit, I'm going to write forever. No, you just got to be willing. Look at the example how self has lied to him. And I see this with every guy I work with. Mr. Brown, he's resentful because of the attention to his wife. His attention to his wife. Well, that's a legitimate reason to be pissed off, you'd think. Well, you see that affects his self-esteem, his sex relations. Remember, that's what's interfered with on the inside of me and his self-esteem. I'm sure he suffers from high self-esteem, but it's brought about some fear. Told wife of my mistress. Brown may get the job at the office. Now look at why he's mad at Jones. Let's look at the judgment that he puts on her. She's a nut. That's a judgment. She snubbed me. She committed her husband for drinking. He's my friend. She's a gossip. So I'm in judgment here. Look at the employer. Unreasonable, unjust, overbearing, threatens to fire me for drinking and padding the expense account. Now go back up and look at 1. He's afraid that Brown may get the job at the office. It's starting to make sense why the hell he'd get fired if he's overbearing and he is padding the expense account and he's drinking on the job. You got a damn good reason to be afraid of getting fired, because that's probably going to happen, especially if you work where I work. So now the truth's starting to come out in the inventory. See, it's an effort to discover the truth. Now let's look at the wife. Misunderstands and nags like Brown wants the house in her name. Well, let's go back up to number 1. Told wife of my mistress. Now here comes the truth. Remember, it's an effort to discover the truth. If I've got a mistress, there's a pretty damn good idea that my wife is going to divorce me and this house is going to go in her name. You could just about bet on it on my end. That's going to bring all kinds of emotions to me. Pride, sex relations, security. I'm scared as hell. It's bracketed all over there. This is a powerful inventory, and taking the way this book is laid out, you will see the truth in a way you never seen it. And it's going to hurt like hell, but it'll set you free. You don't only get sober here. We recover from self. Self manifests in various ways. That's column 3. Is what had defeated us, which is in column 2. One last thing I'll say here. On that column 1, if you'll remember back over there on page 60, when we first started this work in 60, That second paragraph said the first requirement, you be convinced that any life on self will hardly be a success. On that basis, we're almost in collision with something or somebody. Write me a first column prayerfully, and I will show you how that sentence just came true in your life. My sponsor told me, if you don't do this prayerfully, because there was no way men at the end of step 3, if you didn't do this prayerfully, you've just wasted a hell of a lot of ink, paper, and valuable time. It's worthless. Don't even bring it to me, because if you're not going with God, just like with this man here, self is right in the second column. It's got me looking more at you than me. But as we went through that, you should have been able to see the truth come out of that. And that's what we're looking for. It's an effort to discover the truth. We're going to have to face the facts, find the facts. It's powerful. It really is. So thank you. I'm sorry if I took too long, but I just get fired up in this part of the book. So.
I love it. And I think it's really valuable to do some deep dives in this part of the book. And we've been doing that the last couple of weeks. So I'm just going to ask a couple of real quick questions of each of you, one of each of you, and then we'll do takeaways here. Nikki, you mentioned that earlier this week you were doing some anger type things, and the person you were talking to said, "Let's go deep here. This is evil." Talk to us a little bit about what you learned as you went from anger to evil. What kinds of things were illuminated for you at that time?
Wow, that's a great question, and I guess it actually ties into my thoughts at the end of what David was saying when I was thinking. And I want to say to myself, if anyone out there's listening and everyone's like, wow, like David does it this way, or I'm not there yet. Like, remember, David's been here. I think it was this August, he picked up 30 years. He's been in the rooms a while. So, me too, I got to remind myself of this. So I'm learning constantly. And so this question about evil, when my friend came over, because my friend who came over, he was my sponsee. Okay. And then he's gone in a different direction with this group in Texas, and they go line by line, different way. And now he's actually left that hardcore, because he actually said to me the other day, Nikki, I hope I didn't offend you when I was trying to say there's only one way, because I saw he's 2 years old in program. I taught him, or I showed him the way I do it. He's learned another way that isn't the way I do it. He was really on me. I saw it. I knew it was going to happen. Long story short, he's more towards another, like he's seeking where religious people are right. And I guess it's really page 14. Simple. I guess it's page, I think it's 25. Simple toolkit. This is so simple. So I could come at you guys and have a long list of inventory, and I'll give it to you real quick. When we get to the inventory, putting out of our minds the wrongs others have done, and where are you to blame? Not what's your part, Nikki. I'm arrogant. I'm rude. I'm suspicious. I'm envious. I'm selfish. I'm dishonest. I'm greedy. I'm lustful. I'm, filled with anger. I'm lazy. I'm impatient, irresponsible, vulgar talk, gossip, slander, whatever, all these things. And then he said, Nikki, you could put all these fancy words. Remember, we've talked about terms, words. And he says, evil. He says, just plain evil. And like, sometimes I didn't want to hear that. I was like, and then I went like, wow, I wasn't just angry at my person just recently when I was in Luxembourg. I was evil. Like, think about that. I wasn't just angry at my boyfriend. I wasn't just angry at the government. Nikki, you were evil. I know people say, well, I'm, Nikki, don't be so hard. I'm an Al-Anon. I'm in code. No. It's evil. It's plain evil. And that's really a hard fact finding, searching, fearless, fact facing. It's evil. Because what am I going to do about, let's live in God's will. What's God's will? You want to keep it easy? Love. Agape love. So I hope that answers. I mean, this is how simple it is. You are either living, and that's what the realization for me I'm like, no, I've just been angry and restless, irritable, discontented. I need this, I need that. No, Nikki, you're just plain evil. And that's real hard to hear, but the book will tell me that I am not to self-loathe, I'm to be hard on myself and considerate of others. I haven't been hard on me. I've been soft with easy, softer terms and words. Evil.
Thanks, Nikki. I appreciate you diving on that. That can be harsh, but powerful. So, David, there's a sentence here that really jumped out at me this time for some reason. So, I'd like you to dive deep on, especially on one word of this sentence, and it's the last sentence of the first paragraph we read. If the owner of the business is to be successful, he cannot fool himself about values. Talk to me what you understand about values in this sentence and what that means and how come that word jumped out at me. It's so powerful.
Yeah, you're right. It is very powerful because values is something that I've always had, but was always asleep too. I didn't know how for those to manifest in my life. I didn't even really know what it was. And I've had a lot of people tell me, well, this is an asset inventory too. You write the good as well as the bad. Well, I don't see any of those directions there. I just don't. And what's going to happen is the things that I value the most in my life are going to come to the surface here as a result of doing this. And what I really value the most, or I should, is my relationship with God. That's where I fell short all this time. I valued and I love God. Don't get me wrong. He's done a miraculous thing in all of our lives, but I don't live as such. I live by the world's values, ourselves. And so when I see that word, for myself, I need to be more God directed in my prayer and meditation time to really see what values that are beginning to manifest in my life now. And the one that continuously keeps popping up is love. If I value my relationship with my wife, and I do today, then there's deep love. If I value my relationship with you people that are listening to this podcast, then there's honesty. I have to tell you the truth about what the hell has happened to me inside these rooms after all these years. Before, I could never do that. I had to lie and say, go into some deep story that was all bullshit other than, certain parts of it. But so my values, and that's what it's saying there to me is, if the owner of the business is to be if I'm to be successful in this business of recovery, then I can't fool myself about these values. I can't half measure this deal anymore. I can't tell you half truths anymore. Absolute honesty, absolute unselfishness, love, and purity has really came at me in a way in this last month that I could have never dreamed. It is really beginning to open up and just things are just changing. They are. Why? Because my values have changed. I'm becoming more successful at life in the business of life because my values are different today. I was listening to Nikki here talk about the evil, but you know what's positive about that is you can turn that word around, spell it backwards, and it spells live. So don't believe. And here's what I heard, that evil is believing more or less. Let me see. Let me get this right. I don't want to mess it up. To believe in evil is to believe more in the power of evil than it is to believe in the power of God. And really, that's all fear and evil is. It's just a low grade of atheism. That's all it is. But if you turn around and you help others and just walk through that shit, then you get to live. You get to live free. You get to live happy and joyous. Yeah, we're going to hurt. Of course we are. We've made decisions based on self. We've got in relationships. We've jeopardized our values. I've slept with women other than my wife. I've jeopardized my values there. Yeah, I'm going to suffer. I'm going to hurt. But the good news is there's a way out. We get to come back. We get to live. Evil don't have the last word here. I promise you. Because if you look on page 27, and I don't want to misquote that, this is a conversation that Roland Hazard was having with Dr. Carl Jung. Or excuse me. Let's go back in page 25, right in the middle of the page. The great fact is just this and nothing less. We've had deep and effective spiritual experiences, which has revolutionized our whole attitude toward life, toward our fellows, toward God's universe. The central fact of our life today is the absolute certainty that our Creator has entered into our heart and lives. Take the S off the end of that word and spell it backward. E-V-I-L. That's evil. That shit ain't got the last word. Just turn it around. Just turn it around. Live. So anyway, hell, that's a long way around the question you asked, and I hope I answered it. But thank you for letting me share. Good to be here.
Some mind-blowing things. Thank you so much, David. And let's just quickly go into takeaways. Nikki, what's a takeaway you had? And then David, and then I'll do my takeaway.
Well, as David was speaking, and it's funny, he rolled us back to the 20, right there to 27, 25. Now I'm on 29. My last final thought is, this is about establishing my relationship with God. That's the value. As he was talking values, it's like, it's all about the one who has all power. May we find that now. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Nikki. David?
Yeah. Page 64, it's an effort to discover the truth. The Creator that I believe in today, he says, I am the truth, the way, and the life. Take that word life, turn it around. It says evil. It don't have the power here. Trust me, there's one who has all power. That one is God. Thank you.
Thank you. My takeaway kind of falls in that same line. Fear and evil is a low grade of atheism. And, in the big book, and you guys are going to have to tell me the page on this, but what was fear? It's actually coming up here on, I think, 67. What was fear except failed self-reliance, right? And that's atheism. I'm relying on self rather than God. And that's my takeaway on this. Man, so much good stuff in here, everybody. Dive deep with us and take action on this. If you feel your higher power saying, hey, this is someplace you need to dig deeper, get with your sponsor, dig deeper. Come trudge this happy road of destiny with us. Work it. You are worth it.